What do you mean you haven't got it? What? You're joking, mate. No, but we only need that. That's all we need. Just a little bit more, yeah. No. Well, what's happened to his money? We've just literally just sold 2 players. What's happened to that money? What do you mean? Well, can't use Klarna again. You can't use Klarna. What do you mean? Okay. It's you what? Klarna's declined. We have booked. Right. Sorry, John. I'm gonna have to go, mate. We've got some fans waiting for me at the moment. Sorry, supporters. Sorry, not supporters. Customers. I do apologise. That's a bit. Right, welcome, guys. LSD transfer room. I'm trying to get some deals done. You see, John's not moving for shit, so I thought I'd get in contact with him myself. Apparently, we've got no money left. I don't know what he's doing with it. I don't know if maybe he's bought a new TV or something. But yeah, God, welcome anyone that is joining us right now. Welcome, Kev. Welcome, Stephen. Welcome, Harmony. How's it going, boys? How are you going first of all, Kev?
All good, mate. All good. Like the new intro. It's something different. I loved it. No, all good, mate. All good. How about yourself?
You know what? I'm a bit bored. A bit bored of that footy, a bit bored of the transfer window, but ticking on in life. How about you, mate?
Yeah, I'm having a great day. Twitter has not been on my mind not once today, so it's been a good day.
And you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Can't wait to get into the topics that we have today. It should be good.
I wonder if how long it can go. Right, let's see if we get FSG bingo. Let's see how long it takes before we start mentioning FSG. I'm going to start from now. Start from now. I talked to John on the phone. He's sick of him mentioning, to be honest, because he's getting emails, he's getting all sorts. Let's start then, Kev. Franck Kessie. We're just going to brush over this one because it seems as though he's on the verge of joining Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia for 15 million euros, which is just under 13 million pounds, according to Romano. 3-year deal agreed. What are we doing?
Well, on the scheme of things, you look at it and you think, right, well, 15 million euro, is it, or 15 million pounds? Either way, you're thinking that's right in our field of, money of what we possibly may have available. But then you start looking at how many games he played last season, and he averaged only 25 minutes a game last season in La Liga. Then you compare it to the season before where he's at AC Milan, and it's 55 minutes. So is this a sign of a player who has struggled to get to the Barcelona team? Is it someone who hasn't reached the potential of what he needed to be to stay at Barcelona? I know they've got issues with money and stuff like that, but there may be other concerns. So it may be a blessing that we have actually missed that, dodged the bullet in a way. Yeah, on if you look at it on the surface, it looks as though we should be part of it. He meets the criteria of the areas of where we're looking for, but I'm reluctant to be paying any kind of money of that kind of fee for someone who is not going to give you. He's averaging 25 minutes a game. It's probably less than what Naby gave us in 5 years. Do you know what I mean? So I'm glad in a way that we're not actually getting him at all. So yeah.
What about you, Aaron? Did you agree with Kev? Is he someone that we could get? Say if we get a Lavia, for example, if we finally pay up, is he someone that we would look for just as an extra midfielder?
I kind of agree with Kev a little bit because it's true he didn't get that many minutes in that Barcelona team. Clearly they saw something in him that they thought, we can afford to lose you, and we'll still be all right. And I just don't really want a player that's been rejected by a big club like Barcelona to come to Liverpool and kind of just stink up the place. I would actually settle for Lavia if that's the case. I don't know too much about him because I haven't really watched him last season. But from what I've heard from a lot of people, it's not really great things I'm hearing about him. So apart from the experience, that's the only thing that I'll probably want me to want to get him. But apart from that, I don't really care. I'm glad that he's going to Saudi.
Stephen, concur?
Yeah, I think we're all three yeses on that. While on average, he averaged a half an hour a game last season. Like, we got rid of two guys in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita that played a combined, was it 800 minutes between the two of them last season?
Something like that.
So realistically, there's no point. Like, the only thing that would have allowed me to swallow it with a little bit more pride would have been the 15 million euro. Even if he could only give us a half an hour a game, that's fine. But there's injury concerns, there's playing time concerns. While if we were to go and get Lavia, he would have been a nice sort of a seasoned veteran to come in there and let him settle into the role. But then you're getting two new players into a new system, so they're kind of both learning as they go.
Yeah.
He could have been useful for experience, but maybe a year ago might have been an option for him on that. But I think he's gone the way of a lot of older senior players that are beginning to hit the twilight and the downturn of their career, where they see a fat payday over in Saudi Arabia. And realistically, I don't blame him. If I was in his position, or Henderson's position, or Fabinho's position, and knew that I was coming to the end of the road and I could set my family up for generations with that amount of wealth, I jump at the chance, realistically. And anybody that says different, like if you were to leave your own job and get your salary tripled to move somewhere else, you jump at the opportunity. So I don't blame him for going, but I would agree with Kevin Harmony. Not that we missed a bullet here, but he definitely wouldn't be missed, and we won't be thinking back in a few years' time if, damn it, we could have got him.
Well, from going from a fat payday to a club that don't pay for shit. Let's go on to Andre Chende then, Amine. Andre, a player that has been looked at by Liverpool for a good year now. I think I wrote an article about him last year sometime. And he's definitely got all the traits that you'd want as a midfielder, especially that DM sort of number 8 role. According to ESPN Brazil, that Liverpool are preparing a €30 million bid for the midfielder, and that is just under £26 million. Is that really going to happen under this bosses? I'm going to call them bosses under these bosses.
I don't know. I really don't know. What I'm trying to understand about this, are we going to get him and Lavia, or is it going to be either him or Lavia? That's what I want to understand when it comes to these two players, because we keep saying we're going to go in for a third bid for Lavia and we're going to go get this guy. So where's all this money coming from all of a sudden, you know? But anyways, I don't understand it. For me personally, it's I've looked at him, I've watched a couple of highlights. He's a good player, but it's going to take him longer to adapt to the league than it took Lavia. It's going to take Lavia to adapt to the system of the team. And that is the problem. That's the only problem that I have with him. It's the fact that he's coming from a league that is not, yes, physically they're there, but the speed of the Premier League, the quality, and he's not going to get that much time to be doing half of the things he's been doing in the Brazilian league. So that's the only problem, my only concern with him. And I feel like he's a bit undersized in that position as well, because I feel like he can easily get bullied around. And yeah, so I'm not too convinced on him, even though he does look like a good player. If he's like a role player, then fair enough. I'll be gladly, bring him in. But if it's between him or Lavia and we're going for him and we get him, then I'll be worried, because I don't feel like he's good enough to be playing that DM position for us personally.
It seems to be the alternative again. We had the alternative for Tchouameni, which is going to be could be Caicedo. We had the alternative Caicedo, which is going to be Lavia. We had the alternative Lavia, going to be Andre. Stephen, who's going to be alternative Andre?
I don't think it's so much an alternative to him. I think it's an addition to him, and I will trust the training staff and the scouting staff that we have, while they're two completely different players. So you can't really consider one an alternative to the other.
However, mate, before you go on there, Szoboszlai was a reason why we didn't go for Thuram. They're completely two different players.
Yeah, but see, so Thuram would have been more of a central player going forward, whereas Szoboszlai kind of can play out on the right-hand side and come in and help with Salah. It's very much a positionless midfield that we're kind of going for. The likes of McAllister, who can play all three positions. There, midfielder, defensive midfielder, and an attacking midfielder as a 10 if he wanted to. Szoboszlai can do the same thing. When he was playing for RB Leipzig, he kind of focused around the right-hand area, and up front they had three central attacking midfielders spread across the wings. So he would sort of float in the middle and out to the right, kind of what Salah does at the moment. So he'll kind of be feeding in there and doing what Henderson done, overlapping around him. And when Salah goes to AFCON in January for the couple of games that he'll miss there, I think it's 2 or 3 that he'll miss. We've covered there now that there's a quality player that can step in there, both in Doak and in Szoboszlai, that can come in and set in there if needs be. With the likes of Andre, I genuinely think he's more of a Thiago replacement. He's quite a technical baller. He's small, light, shifty, and good with the ball at his feet. But he wouldn't be somebody that I'd put in as a defensive midfielder in any way, shape, or form. He's 5'9", and us in the group have even debated about Trent going into that role. And one of the things that we questioned was his size. He's also 5'9" too. So I don't see him being a defensive midfielder option. We could look for somebody that's less dependent on being a destroyer in relation to that position due to the double pivot. I know myself and yourself had a bit of a back and forth about that you do need somebody like that on the defensive side of the ball. But realistically, I think it's an accompaniment to Lavia. And I said it on Tuesday, I think the Lavia deal gets done by Friday before the game. So he can be in the starting lineup all he wants. But I think come game time tomorrow for the championships starting off, I think it will be getting a here we go from Fabrizio Romano.
Did you say there was a forfeit involved in that? I swear you.
No, I didn't say anything. I mean, we can call a forfeit if you want, but I never agreed to one. I'll agree to one now.
It was a fraud watch. I think it was a fraud watch.
Fraud watch, yeah, that's no problem.
Jen, as per usual, putting the £5 super sticker in there. She is basically giving us more budget than Jurgen Klopp has been given this season by a certain boss. By a certain boss. Tell John to try Clearpay. Yeah, well, if Clan is bouncing back, mate, then I don't think Clearpay will be listening anytime soon. We've got that deal with Clan at the moment. Clan, it's just not. They're not willing to listen to more offers of Clan. They've tried to negotiate with them on the phone, but once you decline. That's it. Bad credit rating. Unfortunately, luckily for John, though, that the bad credit rating goes on the club and not John. He knows what he's doing. Kev, Andre, should we be playing £26 million?
I think it's a typical Liverpool thing to do. We've been given 2 options of 20 million in January, 40 million now, and we go in with a £30 million bid. I kind of expected it. I tend to agree with what Stephen said. We spoke about this, as he said, on Tuesday, and I had reservations about his size. And I'll be honest, I was educated a little bit by both Stephen and by Nathan of the actual player that Andre is. Also, you see someone who's got a bit of an engine on him and can make up ground across that midfield, and that's something. If you are playing with Trent in there, gives you the kind of cover that kind of Henderson has, and I think it's easy to tactically get him in that kind of way of mind. I understand the reservation that Harmony has of a player coming from a Brazilian league and coming over to our league, and it's a fast pace. But I think because of the engine he's got, it will be the pace that he'll be used to, and it can be accommodated in, especially if you play him in a double pivot with, say, Trent. The only thing is, it's the actual size for me is the only downside, and his discipline as well. He gets a lot of yellow cards as well, and has done in the last season. So they were only concerns, minor concerns at that. But as I say, I was educated a lot by Nathan and by Stephen on Tuesday of the play that, and it's kind of made me think, well, it's worth doing if we can do it. I think this gets done in 2 ways. I think it'll either get done before this window, or it'll be guaranteed they'll be coming to us in January.
I think the whole problem was when it was in Brazil, as their transfer to buy players was yesterday. It ended yesterday, so therefore, that's why they don't want to sell them now, especially when I think they're in the Copa Libertadores.
Copa Libertadores, which is their equivalent to the European
Champions
Cup.
League.
So,
it's like basically, I think they're in the quarterfinals or something, second leg.
So
now,
so they this is probably the worst time to be going for a player who's got an opportunity of winning that at the club. And if I was Fluminese as well, I'd be doing exactly the same kind of tactic. You pay double if you want him, kind of thing. Hopefully, something can be struck. It'll depend even if the player wants to come. But I do think it'll get done. I think if not by the end of this window, I think by January, and that gives us enough to then bring someone else in alternatively if there is an alternative to that, and then you then provide that substance for when you need it, because we are going to need a lot of people, because potentially we could be playing 63 games this season, or 64, I think. So it's worthwhile having that quality to come in January, and allows us to rotate. But no, I see it getting it done at some point.
This late bid though for him, because of the Brazil transfer window yesterday, to me just highlights bad planning. It really does. If he was on our list, a player like that, I'm not saying he was above Lavia. Obviously, Lavia was first, and then they're looking at an alternative. But if he was on their list anyway, they should have known already that this Brazil transfer window shut yesterday in terms of buying the players, and they know for a fact Fluminense ain't going to sell. They ain't going to sell after that. And that's where it comes to planning again. Moose, you did say I win. I'm not saying the name because I've not said their name yet, so you still not won yet. I might use that those 3 letters today as swearing on this channel at the moment. That's swearing. Anymore, you're gonna get kicked out. Harmony, let's move on to a different player than a player from Andre to another player that we're linked with quite regular every single day. Another bid is coming according to Neil Jones. Another bid is coming according to Paul Joyce. Neil Jones actually went on the Redmen TV and said that the third bid is going to be closer to what Southampton want. Will it be 42 million plus a box of twirls?
What I'm gonna say is with Paul Joyce, I'm kind of disappointed with him, because he's the exact same person who wrote an article saying that John Henry is going to back Jurgen Klopp this summer by having backing him with finance and everything. So I'm kind of upset with him. But moving on from that, it's just a little bit. I'm tired. I'm just sick and tired of talking about this player. At this point, it's just like, what's the point? Like, we're gonna sound like a broken record. Just bring him in. Just bring him in. We need the player.
Is this much worse for Lavia if we do end up signing him? Is this
I think it's worse for him
because after that.
Yeah, it's worse for him because, one, he's coming to a squad that has gone through a whole pre-season together, that have gelled together, and he has to implement himself into that team. 2, he's not going to get enough time to even build relationship with Trent to understand how does Trent move, where is going to, and where do I need to cover when Trent goes, when he pushes up, when he comes into that midfield. There's so much behind what he would have to do in terms of us when we're in possession and when we're out of position, that he needed that time with the squad to train and to understand the system. So bringing him in now, about 10 days before, I think it's 10 days before we start playing, I believe.
Yeah, just have a week.
That's really bad, and that means we have to rely on Jones playing in that position.
And that's bringing him now as well.
Yeah,
I
don't want him. I don't want Jones playing that position, because we saw what he did in Bayern Munich, and that was disgusting. I'm sorry, that was really poor, and that is not something I want to see at the beginning of the season. We need to start the season strong. So if we're going to start the season strong, you should have brought this guy in about 2 weeks ago, when you knew that Fabinho was leaving, when you knew that Henderson was leaving. All of these things was in our face. We got told that they were leaving, and this is the money we're getting for them. So why did you have to wait until we get close to the last couple of days of preseason to bring a player in, when you know how vital that position is? We're literally the only team, I believe we're the only team in the transfer and in the Premier League that don't have a CDM. For a club like Liverpool, that's appalling. Our organization has been appalling this whole transfer window. It's been really, really appalling, and I'm just sick and tired of having this conversation. That's why my energy is kind of off, because I'm just like, there's not really much I can really say. What's there really to say? We know we have to bring him in. We know that he's going to lack experience. We know that we're gonna need somebody else in there to help him. So it's like, why did you let Fabinho go? That's another thing I'm thinking. Why did we let Fabinho go? We didn't have to let him go, because he wasn't on his last couple of years of his last year of his contract. So we could have refused that deal and be like, no, we don't want him to go, because we need him for this season. But we chose to do that. So if you knew you were going to let this guy go, you should have had a replacement for him. As soon as he said yes to that contract and you said, yes, we're letting you go. Yes. Okay, cool. Next week, a guy comes in that's going to replace him. So you can give him time to gel with the team, time for the Klopp to work with him, and time for him to build a relationship with Trent, with the midfielders, and with the attackers and with the defenders, so he can understand it, so it can be easier for him to embed himself in the team. Now it's going to be one of those ones where it's going to take him a bit longer, and we have to rely on people like Jones or Thiago playing that position, and that's not going to be good for us. So that's why I stand with it.
Well, there we go. Nilo, wow, that is an unbelievable £200 super chat. If third bid matching Southampton's expectations, why so much delay? Exactly that. No pre-season under Klopp. I can't understand why we're not serious. 17 teams done more business than us. And another team, in terms of, when you say 17, it could be 18 very soon if Man City get, for example, Vardy all over the line, and they're looking to get someone else as well. I think they're looking to get, I think it's a right back I was looking earlier. Thank you so much for your donation there, Nola. That is incredible. And again, our super chats are putting more into our kitty than what a certain John Henry's putting into Liverpool at the moment. So why have we waited this long then, Stephen? Because as Harmony said and as Nola just said, we've waited all pre-season here. We've got our last pre-season game on Monday. We're literally playing Chelsea in 10 days, as Harmony said. And even if he comes in now, he hasn't had any pre-season. He's pushing for Monday's game. He's got to settle down his new teammates. If he's got a family and stuff, he's got to move them over. He's not ready for Chelsea. And then that again, if we lose to Chelsea because of a lack of a DM, we're playing catch-up already, just for absolute sheer pathetic planning, pathetic backing. And it's the same and over again as last season and the season before. What is going on? It seems like we're not learning anything.
First of all, I'd have to a little bit disagree with Harmony on how Jones performed against Bayern Munich. I thought he held his own. He wasn't great, but I don't think he was terrible either. I think he held his own.
How did he play? Let's see Jones as a player, right? I think he played well on the ball, looking back at the game. But as a defensive midfielder, did he play well?
Oh, yeah, no.
This is what I'm saying. This is what
as I said, I'm not saying
Jones
that he should
player.
be there. I'm not saying he should be there long term, not by any stretch of the means whatsoever. But in the game, in the small sample size that we've seen, he held his own. Now, was it a spectacular performance? Not by any stretch of the margin. The two of the goals that occurred to us came down the right-hand side, and I would actually attribute them more to Joel Matip not being as mobile as he used to be, because he would have had to have covered the space much, and I think Konate would have been able to cover that a little bit more with Trent into the double pivot. I think that was a contributing factor to two of the goals. One of the goals was offside by a country mile, but we left refereeing decisions out of it. So technically, if you want to round it up, that's 3-1. That's 3 goals that could have been snuffed out if Konate was in beside Van Dijk and covering for Trent. Two of those goals, and then the third goal, if it was done in either European or Premier League football, that third goal wouldn't have counted either for the 6 yards that he was offside. So you need to look at the context of everything that occurred. Was Jones spectacular? Yeah, go ahead, Harmony. Apologies.
I don't want to cut you off. I just want to point out the second goal. Yes, Trent and Matip could have done better, but it was Jones and Robertson that got caught position.
But do you think Konate would have covered that if he was in there rather than Matip?
What about this, Stephen? Do you think Lavia would have covered that if Jones, if instead of Jones?
Yeah,
I do. I'm not questioning that at all. I do think Lavia would have covered it.
Before you get to the defensive mistake, then you need to sort the midfield mistake out first. It shouldn't even be getting to that stage.
He should have got to that position in the first place.
No, I agree with you, but
you got completely stuck into the ball, and all the player had to do literally just roll both of them. He didn't do anything else. All he had to do, he didn't even touch the ball. He just let the ball roll, and he turned, and both of them were already out of the game. So that is what my concern is when I would look at Jones. I was watching. Yes, on the ball he was great. I can't say anything about it. I'm talking about positionally. When you're in that midfield, especially in the DM position, you gotta understand it's not just what's going on in front of you; it's what's going on behind you. You know what I mean? Your positioning, it dictates whether that ball goes past or you intercept it. So that is what my concern is. And I can see someone like Chelsea exposing something like that. And that's why I don't want him in that midfield. But yeah, so that, anyways, continue. Sorry.
You're all right, man. You're all right. No, I don't again, I'm not advocating for Curtis Jones to play in that CDM role by any stretch of the means whatsoever. I thought he did an okay job. I feel some of the goals were, as I said, the right centre back and the right back's issue in that sense, that not being able to cover enough ground that was there. Could Curtis Jones have done a better job? 100%. But Darwin Núñez could have done a better job, and I've been singing his praises too. He had a sitter that he absolutely missed towards the end of it too. There's plenty of players that could have done better in that. Salah was very, very quiet that game, but nobody seems to mention him either in that sense. So I think that game was a very good indicator of what went wrong for us. With the likes of Lavia, the deal, I think, is actually being held up by Southampton. I don't think it's us at all. I genuinely think it's Southampton trying to play hardball, which I think is actually shooting themselves in the foot, because if Lavia plays tomorrow, and I'm on fraud watch, let's say that, if Lavia plays tomorrow, and all, God forbid, touch wood, it doesn't happen. I would never wish an injury on somebody. But if his knee goes, Southampton are out everything. They now have no player, they now have no money for him, and they could have cashed in on him. Realistically, Southampton need to get £48 million to get their 40 million that they would have gotten from City next year. But they weren't ever going to get 40 million from City next year, because you're spending a year in the Championship. That's not a Premier League player you're buying. It's a Championship player that you're buying. And who says that he doesn't have a stinker of a season in the Championship? Who says that he doesn't? He could light the world on fire and be worth 80 million. Like, you never know. Southampton are really playing with fire when doing this, and I believe that them prolonging this is actually hurting them more in the long run. Like, even James Ward-Prowse is after getting the fee that was given for him. I believe, was it West Ham that submitted for him, or that was the £30 million for him was turned down. Southampton really aren't in a position that they can be denying the guts of 70 to 80 million pounds worth on two players when you're in the Championship, because they're assuming that they're going to go up next season as well. They could have a stinker of a season and not go up at all, and then Lavia's value just absolutely plummets, and then they're left with egg on their face. I really think Southampton are doing themselves a disservice in this situation with their negotiating. Could Liverpool have just forked up the 50 million quid to begin with? Sure, of course they could have. But if you have the chance to haggle, you're going to haggle. And if you don't have to spend 50 million pound on a player and you can spend 45 or you can spend 40, you're going to take that, because then you can reinvest the savings elsewhere. There's so many facets to this that are going on behind the scenes that I don't think even Fabrizio Romano and all of his glory is privy to. But I genuinely think that the Lavia deal, this new one, is being put through. I think I've seen somewhere in the range of a 40 million base fee and then 8 million in add-ons, something along that, which gives Southampton their 48 million evaluation, which allows them to give 8 million to City and them to keep the 40 million that they would have gotten in the first place. But I really think with Southampton's negotiating tactics, they're going to absolutely rue the day that they've done this. Not because it's against us or anything, but they really could have been an awful lot smarter in this transfer window, realistically.
Last night we were that close to breaking Man City's attendance record. Tonight we have done it. We've got 469 viewers live right now, breaking Man City's attendance record. Incredible numbers. If you are new to this channel, please like and subscribe. Please like anyway. If you're new, if you're old, if you're an OG, please make sure you like. It gets our algorithms up, and we can provide you more content and better content as well. You know, the more likes we get, the more shares we get, the more chances we get a chance to make it bigger and better for you guys. All goes back to you guys. And before I come to Kev, I'm going to thank Matty once again for his £10. And he says, Boston Mindbad's gaslighting us all again. Lavia will be our last signing if we do sign him. And that's the question, if we do sign him, because we haven't signed him yet. So 45 million for Lavia out of Fab and Hendo money, which means 88 million net spend. Absolutely pathetic. FSG out. Kev, what is going to be the number that does get Southampton, a little bit just eyes open? Maybe a little bit eyes open and maybe come to some sort of agreement. Do you think it's going to be what Stephen said, 40 million, 8 million plus?
I think if you offer them the 40 million that Man City are going to potentially offer them next season, and you're offering them now, I think that's where they want to be. You've matched that, and then the rest in add-ons. I've said along. I've said to State. I think it would be 45 with add-ons to 50. But if 40 is the magic number that they want off Man City, and we've matched that, and then gone, well, we'll give you 8 million in potentially realistic add-ons. I don't see how they turn around and say no. I totally agree with State. I think they have tried to treat this transfer as though they are still a Premier League team, and I think it's not doing them any good. If I was a fan of Southampton, I'll be kind of scrutinising. Yeah, I like my team to be getting money for me players and as much as we can, but we're in a championship, which is one of the hardest leagues to get out of, and I'd sooner see that being spent on players that can potentially get us out of here rather than leaving it to the last minute as they have done. It's what I can't expect, and I think Klopp mentioned at the start of the window is the fact that some we would like to get in as soon as possible, but some may take 6 or 7 weeks. So we knew there was going to be some kind of harbouring. Some of it is, there's badness on both sides. We should have done a lot earlier than what we have done. But then also Southampton should have done the same. But, at the end of the day, if you're allowed to banter and barter for players, this is where the situation you'll be. The good thing is it hasn't got to an impasse as of yet, and the players still potentially come to us. I agree with Steve as well. I do think that the player will be a Liverpool player, even if he's on the bench. I think potentially he could be on the bench tomorrow, but not come on. And that's probably the worst scenario I can see. I can't see him coming on, especially being as they're kicking off this season, and rightly so. Their managers come out and said, "Yeah, I've just seen it could be 9 weeks." I'm sorry, William, I didn't realise it's more than 7 weeks or 8 weeks that the comment was said by Klopp. But that's the process we're in. We've got Schumacher in who's trying to do the best he can. Now we're not privy as to who's on the list, who's going to come in. I'm expecting 3 to come in at the minute, and I expect Lavia to be one of them. And I think once he's over the line, I'll then see us pressing and bringing other players in. If we don't get Andre in, then there may be an alternative to that. Hopefully, I'm optimistic and always will be until the window's closed. There's no point in scrutinising and kicking off and being unhappy with the way things are. It could have gone a lot better, I agree. But I think we're still in the transfer window. As long as the transfer window is open, I'm always hopeful.
I think with me, the reason why I won't say I kick off, but I do call it out, if that makes sense, because of the fact that there's literally a Chelsea game in 10 days. And by the time say if a transfer doesn't happen, it's going to be too late anyway. So that's why you need to kick off or call it out earlier on to make sure it's done before whenever we need him. And going into that Chelsea game with Curtis Jones being a number 6, and as much as Curtis Jones, I think he's a decent player in there, definitely going to be a very, very important squad player for us. I have always called him the Nicky Butt of our squad. He is not a number 6, and the way he played, like Hammy said the other day, when he played the other day, he kept drifting out of position. And as a number 6 and a DM, you cannot do that, because as soon as you do that, there's massive gaps. And especially with this Trent inverted role, because this Trent inverted role means Kanate is going to push over. That means the DM needs to drop back. And when the DM's not dropping back, there's going to be gaping holes again. And Jones caught himself drifting upfield. And maybe, I won't say ball watching, but I think he's just used to it. He's used to playing that number 8. And to me, he is a number 8, and he's a good number 8. Before I come to Harmony, Damon, can we hear your poem today? I said, you've got 9. I might even get it down to 8.5k. If you can get it to 8.5k by the Chelsea game next week, I will be writing a John Henry poem. I said I'll do it, and I will back it. And I've got my first line in my head, not written down yet though. But if you guys get us to 8.5k before the Chelsea game, I will be saying live on stream. Hopefully next week. I host every Thursday, so hopefully next Thursday I will be doing a John Henry poem. Yep, I know. Harmony, let's move on to what else Neil Jones said about on Redmen TV, and that was we're only going to get a centre-back after we've done our midfield. Why can't we do two transfers at a time?
I don't know. I really don't know. I wish I knew. maybe they're trying to figure out another way to get money from somewhere. Maybe they don't have the money yet, so they have to, you know, after they finish this deal, they have to try to figure out some sort of way to get money from somewhere else. But I don't know. Who knows? Who knows at this point with these owners? But I hope that's the case. That's a positive. I'm glad that's going to be the case. If they do bring in Lavia, which we're all hoping they do, if they get another centre back in, will be very great for us. We'll be in a better position than we are right now in terms of squad depth, especially in that defense, because Matip and Gomez are not really looking that great right now. You know, that might change during the season. They might start performing well. They might start, you know, putting in some good performances, and we can, you know, rely on them a little bit more. But right now, from what we've seen so far, it's not great. So, yeah, I think a centre back will be really well needed. Should we really be doing deal for both of them? Yes, but you know, it's Liverpool. You come to expect these things, and it's not really surprising anymore. So, yeah, I'm just glad that is going to be the case. That is something that they're thinking about. That is something that is even an option for us to even look into to get a centre back. Because I just thought we were just going to get Lavia and that's it. And that's that. I still feel like that, but I'm going to be positive and just hope that we are going to get at least 2 players in before the transfer ends.
I think that's what it is at the moment. It's hope rather than expectation, and it seems to be like that for the last few years, Kev. I'm just going to put up this what Charles just put up. 8K subs. Thank you very much, everyone. Exactly that. 8K subs is unbelievable. Last few weeks it's been going mad, especially last few days, we're getting some incredible numbers. Thank you all for coming in. Make sure you like and subscribe. 500 subscribers off at my John Henry Love point. Kev, is it good enough that we're looking for midfield first and then we're looking at centre back? Surely Klopp is not happy with this, do you? I don't know what you think about that, Kev, but I personally think Klopp can't be happy. He can't be happy about this.
He can't, but I think the way the club are playing this out, as though we're poor and we've got no money and we're scraping around the barrel and we're looking underneath the carpet, we're looking underneath the settee, we're looking everywhere for money. But then you see the revenue, and we're third biggest third biggest revenue in the world. It's not like the 70s or 80s where there's no like kind of out all this isn't out there. Like, we're trying to play out as though we are, the poorest club in the world, but actually we're not. But there's money there, potentially there. So rightly so, people knew from the start, from the get-go, that we were looking for midfielders. So we knew we made the bed that we were in because of that. Everyone knows that Liverpool's first priority was always going to be that. So what's the worst thing that was? So what was the first thing that everyone was going to do? Were they going to shun up at Anfield and go, here's our best players, you can have them for whatever you want? It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, everyone's playing hardball with us, and rightly so. Yep. And everyone will be the same. Why wouldn't you be playing hardball with a club that's trying to present itself as the poorest team in the world? Do you know what I mean? And yet, to make out as though we're trying to do it on a budget, but this seems as though this is part of the old, it's like a theatre. It's like it's like the second act, and we're waiting for everyone to be kicking off, and then once everyone starts kicking off, we then see someone brought in through the door, and then everyone goes last, and then we're on to Act 3, and the final act is the last week in the transfer window, and we may get 1 or 2 potentially in. That's what it feels like, and it feels frustrating, as well as how well we brought the likes of McAllister in, Slobosly, who came in as well, who we didn't expect was going to come in, and then next minute, bang, there you go, you've got him. What have we done? And then I think from a fan's point of view, you look at the frustration that we've had since then, as that we haven't really, we've gazed over at Colwell to see if we can tempt him away from Chelsea, only for him to sign a 6-year deal. It's as though we're just reacting to everyone, and I think a lot of people are getting frustrated with that and would like us to be more progressive in our window. I get it, that why can't we go for Lavia and also a centre back at the same time? I don't know. It may be Shamak's Axel, the fact that he's old and he can't get to two places at once. I don't know. He may not do, streaming. He may not be able to get online. Who knows? But it's one of them. I get the frustration, but I'm not going to be. I agree. We've got Chelsea in next week. Rightly so. We would like to have someone in. We may get someone in before then, but I don't think the way it's gone. I think Klopp has known that this was going to take as long as it has, and is trying to find an alternative for that first game of the season against Chelsea. Whether we like that or not, that's what it deems to me. My own opinion is, and that's what I think it feels like, as though he realised that this was going to take a little bit longer to get a midfielder in, and the kind of type of player he wants. So it's now. He's trying to find an alternative to that midfield, and there are a few versatile players that can play in that centre mid for the short term, which may be needed and required.
Regarding the waiting around for it as well, for me, Kev, is the fact that we're playing into other clubs' hands as well with this, because, like you said earlier, they have every right to ask that sort of money. Southampton's got every right to ask 50 million. At the end of the day, all Liverpool can do now is either pay the 50 million or walk away, and we lose out anyway. We either lose out on the money now or we lose out fully, because we're leaving it so late with these negotiations that clubs have no reason to say, okay, you can have him. If it gets to the last game season, last day transfer window, and we still haven't brought anyone in, it's going to be a panic sign again, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, no, it would be getting to panic time. I'm not overly stressed about it at the moment. Like, we still have another month to go. As Kev said earlier in the stream, like Klopp said, some will be done quickly, and others may take a couple of weeks. And I seen somebody there say a comment that Schmachter was meant to be ruthless, and he's been nothing but useless this transfer window.
It's in for 3 months, mate. It's literally like that guy, when you hand your P45 in, you've got 4 weeks left of your work, and you just can't be asked. That's what it could be like.
But at the same time, you got to kind of deal with the cards you're dealt. Like, he can only buy what he's been given money for. Yep. So you can't necessarily fault the man. Like, he could be absolutely running and racing around that AXA building, given forms left, right, and centre of scouting reports and everything, and handing them to the guy that hands them the money. And every single time, the second it gets to the bottom line of the price tag, they're like, no. So you can do all the work in the world that you want and get as many scouting reports and say you want X, Y, and Z, but if nobody's putting up the money for them, you're talking to the wall, unfortunately. So I'd have to defend him in as our sporting director with that and how he's done in this transfer window. He's done wonders, considering at the start, and he got two very good players in immediately. I seen somebody else put up a post to say that we've lost 6 but gained 2. We haven't lost 6. We've lost 1 starter, and that's Fabinho. I wouldn't count Henderson as a starter going into the season. Milner's not a starter. And Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain played a grand total of 900 minutes between the two.
But we have lost depth, though, haven't we, Stephen? We have lost depth.
Yes, we have.
Last season, when Klopp was asked about midfield, he says, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. He wasn't including them all in his depth. Mm-hmm. We're fine.
But realistically, if you look at it now, though, for depth in midfield, see, we forget that last season we had basically 2 non-players in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita who were just there robbing a paycheck, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
But so this season there's Elliott, there's Bajcetic, there's Thiago, there's Szoboszlai, there's McAllister, there's I think that's more or less the core of it realistically. Then you have then there's the likes of the wingers as well on top of it that can fall into midfield if needs be. But they're realistically, I have to give Schmachter as much credit as I possibly can, because he got 2 deals done for 2 players that play 95% of their minutes, and technically replaced 2 guys that play bugger all of their minutes. So we're addressing the point of availability as one. And with regards to a centre back and a CDM, it could just be the fact that there's nobody on the market at the moment that we're able to go for. The Colwill deal, the second Fofana went down, that Colwill deal, you might as well have burnt it up in a piece of paper, because the second Fofana's knee went, you knew for a fact that Colwill was staying. Now, in saying that, Chelsea have signed another centre back from France. and I don't know if they're going to be going in as competition or not. But then Poch came out and said that he needs to see more from him, and I'm kind of like, you don't really tell that to a player that's just signed a 6-year deal, so you don't know what's really going on there. But he signed the deal. He is what he is. If they want all 17 games worth of his experience, by all means, go for it. I was going nowhere near that. If I was paid to do it for £80 million, like they were asking, they could keep him. Yep. But with one centre back that has kind of come up that we were a little bit linked with earlier on in the window is Mickey van de Ven, because the Tottenham have been putting in a couple of deals and it's kind of stalled a little bit for them. They put in a £45 million deal, 40 million and 5 in add-ons, and Wolfsburg were just trying to sort out how to get the payments. Spurs are trying to hardball them with the add-ons and saying that they're not really all that plausible, so we're losing out here. And it's either they come to a compromise on how the fee is going to be paid and the add-ons that they're easier, or else they want 50 million. And he was somebody that we were linked with very early on in the window, so that could be an avenue that we could go down again for the centre back role. I am blue in the face as well from saying it for Gonzalo Inacio from Sporting. He is my favorite player. Harmony knows it. Kev knows it. Everybody in the group chat knows it.
We're on the same boat. We're on the same boat. I wanted him as well. So
yeah,
it's the release clause as well. There's absolutely no excuses not to go.
Yeah, that's why I think we haven't gone near him, because we're going for players that we possibly might get cheaper, the Liverpool way. And then if it comes to it, we'll just pull the release clause on him. And there's reports left, right, and centre saying we're gone off him, but there was reports left, right, and centre saying we were gone off Van Dijk as well. And then all of a sudden he's in a Liverpool shirt. So until it comes from the likes of Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano that we've cooled on him, I don't heed a bit of that, and nobody's really cooled on any player, especially with a release clause. We could very easily get a here we go tomorrow morning for that being done, and we'd all be shocked by it. That's why I think there's talks going on behind doors that nobody is privy to, and I think that there's going to be some mad signing by the end of the window, and we're all kind of going to be eating our words a little bit. But Mickey van de Ven or Gonzalo Inacio will be two centre backs that I would very, very much like. They both play on the left-hand side as well, which would help our current situation with the likes of the inverted midfielder in Trent, or the inverted right back, should I say. So they'd be two that I'd love to go for. And realistically, Kepren Thuram and Manu Kone were never off the table either. So it's not as if we couldn't go and get them as well. Not as well, but, you know, it could even put in for them too. So realistically, we think there's only one target, but I can guarantee you there's 6 or 7 that are currently being talked with at the moment. But the only ones that are getting any airtime on social medias and everything is Lavia, because of how long it's taken and the fact that we haven't signed a centre back yet. And obviously with Colwell as well, being a young English player, sure, that was everywhere too. It's the English tax in the end, and everything got to do with that. So I think we've done okay in this window. Could we have done better? Yes. But we also could have done a lot worse. We could have paid £70 million for 9 goals like Man United, and we could have been paying silly money like Arsenal have for Kai Havertz and another 60 million on Mason Mount. So say what you want about Todd Bowley, but getting 125 million out of the two of them, that's good business. Because I can't see either of them performing, and Arsenal fans are slowly starting to realize that Kai Havertz isn't all that. But realistically, I can see 2 midfielders coming in and a centre-back coming in before the window is out. A young midfielder and a more seasoned one on a lower wage. I say lower wage, sorry, lower transfer fee, like a veteran kind of a thing to come in, much like we mentioned Kessie earlier on at the start. That kind of a player that can come in and just do a half an hour a game, or do every 2 games and let the young guy come in and build his minutes up. And then we get a centre-back in to sit behind Van Dijk, who's going to be gone in about 2 years anyway, I think, to be his understudy. And I think Inacio is going to be one of the guys that could do that for us. Or Mickey van de Ven, his national teammate, could very, very easily come in and mould into that role well as well. He's nearly 6'4". He's a big, big kid, like. So I genuinely think that there's an awful lot more news to come, and it's going to be a busy, busy, busy couple of weeks for us coming up now to the end of the month.
You think so to add this, a little good news for Stephen. You never know, it might be a situation where, because Inacio, they're trying to give him another offer, another extension where his base code might be 60 mil. Do you think that as Liverpool, you know how we did the whole Sloboside situation where we just released, we didn't
let them get that new release clause.
Yeah,
that could happen.
That could be happening, you know.
That could happen. They could be waiting for it. Like, as I said, like Inacio, you don't pull the trigger on a player with a release clause unless there is wind or sniff of them all of a sudden bumping that up to a higher degree.
Yeah.
And that's what we did with Szoboszlai. There was obviously wind of that being increased to an obscene amount that we were never going to go for. So that's why we went in and got that done quickly. Happened in the space of 72 hours. We all went to bed on Friday night and it was like, oh, we might get him. And then we woke up Monday morning and he was in AXA Medical Centre getting his tests done. Like,
yeah.
So I genuinely believe that Inacio could be somebody that will come in, or if not, it could be I think it's a lesser possibility that Mickey van de Ven comes in, because he seems him and Spurs seem fairly set on each other. But if Spurs don't want to cough up the money, Wolfsburg could very easily go elsewhere with it, and we were linked with him earlier on. So I genuinely think we could see at maximum 4 players coming in, but at minimum 2 more players coming in by the end of the window.
I think 2 is definitely, even for me, 2 is a bit. I don't even think it's the minimum. I think 3 should be the minimum at the moment, because I still think we need 2 centre midfielders and definitely centre back. Before I come to Kev, as it stands right now, what is the Liverpool really aiming for? Before I come to you, Kev, to answer that question, LSE Transfer Room are aiming for 10k subs, and we are aiming to get as many likes as we can on this video, as many subscribers, new subscribers, as many shares as you want, as many comments. Get all your comments in. This is, guys, this is for you, and everything that we go into the channel, put it back into you, that we want to be the best Liverpool content around if we can. We want to be the best, and we want to be the most content to get out as much as you want to give us, as much as you want as well, guys. So Kev, as it stands right now, what is Liverpool really aiming for? Because we should be aiming for titles, shouldn't we?
Absolutely, we should be aiming for everything. We should be looking. This should be part of our dominating side under Klopp. You know, Klopp hasn't really had the tools or the fighting tools to fight against Man City as much as what we would received or have been told in the past that was going to be made available to him. We've heard words like war chests and next season this is going to happen. And I know you've been writing a lot, but it seems a bit like Groundhog Day for you for the past 2 seasons. And that's where the frustration comes in. And I get that frustration. I don't see it falling into the masses at the ground, falling into that. I think it'll take a big drop off from the team, and the fact that the team falls down and is less competitive before you start seeing any kind of FSG out and anything like that we saw when the last 2 cronies that we managed to get out of our club. That's where we are at the sense. But again, you know, I'm like a heroin addict. I will automatically think that, you know, there's optimism. I will always believe that, and I think this isn't the time to be calling it out now when there's still at least 4 weeks left in a window. I know that doesn't sound right. We've got a game in around about 9 games in 9 days' time.
Yep.
But there's 4 weeks left of this window open. I am optimistic that we can get deals done, and we will get deals done. I think what hasn't helped is that there's been a lot of chaos from Michael Edwards to Julian Ward going, the analytical team going, no doctor for over 6-7 months at the club. There's been a lot of chaos off the pitch as well as on the pitch. Players out of form, team struggling, a midfield that is decimated and needs people to come in, a younger, fitter engine in there. And the worst thing about it all is that we're going to be in the same position with the centre backs, if not next season, the season after, because of what we've done. Because what should be happening is we should be bringing in these 30-40 million players. Instead, we are waiting to bring players in that are not going to be there. We've waited too long, and there's too much fracture at the club. When a club is doing well and everyone's singing from the same heartbeat, it basically, and hymn sheet, sorry, I can't get my words out, but it's when everyone's in the single form, this is what you see how well the club is. The problem is that there's too many parts of it that's fractured and have been fractured, as well as a team that's not been performing to its best. So you'll always have this fracture between fans. You see the frustration, you see the fans and because there's no transparency, which rightly so, you're not going to see during the transfer window, and we hold our cards up. It's why we get frustrated, and I get it. And you have a platform to do that, which we do. And it's great that we hear people's opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't disagree with anyone who's harboring those thoughts. But at the minute, if I'm being realistic, this isn't going to... If we don't sign anyone now and the Lavia deal falls through, I don't see FSG out banners on the Kop or anywhere on that first home game of the season. I don't see it at all. And it won't be, as I've said, it'll take the team to be less competitive before you start seeing that kind of, if that's what people want and want to see that's what it's going to take. There's not going to be, many are frustrated and angered, but it'll take a big drop off for us in the team before you start seeing anything like that. But for me, there's too much going on off the pitch as well as on the pitch, and there's not enough going on. The short-term place for the director of football to work within, and then we're going to review it at the end of that. It kind of it's not the Liverpool way that I've known. Do you know what I mean? So it's all kind of, it doesn't feel right at the minute. But we're harbouring through, and the endeavour of the fact that Klopp looks a lot more youthful. He looks more energised at the start of pre-season. The players going forward, I've got to say, we are looking really good next season. Yeah. And there's a lot of positives that we need to look at. We need to stop looking at all the negative side. I get it, but at the same time, there's a lot of positives with this young team, this young versatile team, a versatile team that are going to be able, are going to do stuff next season that I think is going to be possible. And you've got exciting players like Szoboszlai, you've got McAllister, who are going to be playing balls in that midfield to the likes of Nunes, Gakpo, Diaz, Dana Henderson, and Milner, and Fabinho. So you've already... That forward progressive way of playing is going to be where we are, and for me, that's where we are looking towards. It's a young, versatile team. I think we just need to wait a little bit longer, but before anyone starts seeing FSG out, and I get it, it'll be a while for me. I think, in my own opinion, before that happens. But rant over. I apologise, it took too long there.
You know what, mate? Sometimes you got to just let it flow, because otherwise it builds up inside it, and you're spot on in exactly what you've said, especially regarding like the doctor and everything else outside off the pitch. And it all comes down to, I've nearly gone an hour without saying their name, by the way. So it's a record.
Well done.
I've already broken the attendance record for Man City tonight. I'm going to break the record for not mentioning FSG. And it all leads back to FSG. Like Matty says here, 5 years of neglected midfield and defence, and where has it got us? We should never be in this position where we need 5 or 6 players in one go. That's exactly why FSG need to go. This for me, people are like, oh, we'll wait till this transfer window ends before we say FSG out or FSG in or whatever. I was like last season. I'm a season before. I called it last season when we needed a midfield. I said it was not good enough and we need to put our feet on FSG. And they got away with it. They went on to the season. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Paul Jess said we're going to be all right. I don't know if he's ever kicked the ball, but we're going to be all right. We wasn't all right. We went to Fulham. Signs were there in the Fulham game straight away. Obviously, a saviour came on with Darwin Núñez, little flick. And then again, Palace. Was it Palace midweek, wasn't it? I think we had him a midweek. And again, more signs there for what we're going to come this season. We had moments of brilliance, and we're going to have moments of brilliance with these players because we've got Salah, we've got Alisson Becker, we've got Virgil van Dijk, we've got Thiago when he's fit, we've got Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz, by the way, Mane Salah potential. He has to start. I know Jota's been good. I know Núñez has been scoring in pre-season, but Diaz is a different level. We've got these players. We've got this manager. We've got likes of Trent. they need that little bit extra. You can't go into a season again without addressing the problems, without addressing the issues. And the reason why we can't address the issues is because of FSG. That's as simple as that, because it's not Klopp. Because Klopp's come out this time and said, I need midfielders. I want to get midfielders. I want to bring them in. We're sat here 10 days before the Chelsea game and we haven't got a DM. A DM. Not a right back or a left back or a winger, which important positions, don't get me wrong, but nothing compared to a DM. Look back over the years, title-winning sides with DMs. Keane, Man United. Fernandinho, Man City. Makelele, Kante, Fabinho. You know how important that DM is? We're relying on Curtis Jones to play DM at the moment. We could be relying on Curtis Jones to play the first 2-3 games of the Premier League season as DM. Is that acceptable? Yes, George Schmack might be on his last 4 weeks or whatever he's working, so he can't be asked. But like Stephen said earlier, he's only working what he's got. Jurgen Klopp's only worked with what he's got. We can be positive. I'm excited for the season. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely. I can't wait. I love the McAllister signing. Szoboszlai I've been watching for a good few years. I'm excited about Szoboszlai. Great signings. And it's very rare Liverpool get bad signings anyway. It's just they need to get them. And when people say, "Oh, we don't want Man City money. We don't want to spend this. We don't want to spend that." When we bought Van Dijk, when we bought Alisson, when we bought Fabinho, we paid that sort of extra money because we know we needed to. So why are we, beating around the bush when it comes to Lavia? Or why are we not going for someone like Caicedo? Caicedo, I said it in the chat the other day. If we got someone like a Caicedo along with a two-round and maybe a centre-back, our chances of winning the league from 10% or 20% goes to 75% automatically. That's what Klopp deserves. That's what our fan base deserves. 75% chance of winning that league. Top four's not good enough anymore. Top four was 2000s, 90s. I fucking suffered for those. We've got the best manager, pound for pound, in the world. We've got some of the best players in the world. Give them that extra bit to go and win this title. Because Liverpool can win this title. I think we can win this title now with this team. I thought we could win the title with fucking Kyrgiakos and fucking Skirtle at the back. I thought we could win the title when Voronin's played up front with David Engo. That's the Liverpool in me. But I genuinely believe we can win the title now. But if we do get these players in the next, I want to say a week, because I want to get before the Chelsea game. But if we definitely get at least 3 players in before the end of the window, our chances go up. Jurgen Klopp needs to get the best tools to go again, and he can go again, and he can win that title again. Because Stephen, we're looking at Jurgen Klopp era as what if? That's what we're looking at. What if?
The one thing that I will say is realistically, City have set the benchmarker for being the best team in the league, and however they've done it, legitimately or illegitimately, they've done it. The only thing that I will say is that Liverpool have an X factor. 2 X factors, actually. One of them is the manager. He's the only man that's beaten Pep Guardiola to a league title in the past 10 years. Twice. Done it against Bayern and done it against Man City. It's the only man to do it. So I have all my utmost trust in him. And something that I noticed, and I think this has kind of become our mythos ever since 2005, and maybe a little bit prior to that, is that Liverpool is most dangerous when you think you have them. Everybody thinks they have our number. Let's talk about it in 12 months' time when we have a couple of trophies with us. That's the way I'm looking at it. Everybody thinks that they have Liverpool right now, and they have Liverpool's number. We've taken a knock last season. We've stumbled a wee little bit, but I have the utmost faith. And as Jurgen Klopp said himself in the interview that he had with not too long ago in the Access Centre, trust him and trust the staff and trust that they're going to get everything right. I genuinely think that this season going forward, I think a lot of the bigger teams are going to take a step back. I think with the likes of the Champions League for Arsenal, I think they're going to take a step back. I don't think they've signed the right players. Jesus is now also out with an injury. Not that he would have provided much to begin with anyway, but he would have provided something. Now they don't have a number 9. Declan Rice is really the only signing of note, and I think they overpaid by about 40 million for him. And then you have Kai Havertz coming in, then who's already got the ire of Arsenal fans to begin with. So there are two marquee signings and they're one marquee signing from last season. One of them may work out, and they overpaid for him by about 40 million. So they're not in as good a position as I think they are. And depth was their issue last season, and I don't think they've addressed that at all. The likes of City as well are losing players left and right, and they've only brought in the same amount as us. Fair enough, is Guardiola, who is an 80 million signing, and then Kovacic as well. It's just another one to shore up the midfield.
However, they've just come off the back of the treble as well.
They have, but then by that logic, they have money to burn. Yeah. But they've only bought 2 people. So
do you think there's more to that, Stephen? Talking about Man City, I think there's more to that. I've been thinking about this all summer.
They've been very quiet. They've been very quiet.
And the fact that the FFP thing, it did die down, but is something going on in the background with that? And
I think there could be something going on there in relation to that they could. They know that there's something in the pipeline or something along the lines that we obviously don't know about yet, but. Chelsea, I just think, are signing players for fun, and Nkunku now has gone down with a knee injury, and he's going to be out for a couple of months apparently, considering it, because it was braced up while he was sitting on the bench. So that's a bad injury, and it'll take him a couple of months to get back, and then another couple of weeks after that to get back to full form. He could be basically a write-off for the whole season. Now, obviously, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, as I mentioned before, but the fact of the matter is he's injured. Man United are just spending silly money, as they always do. Whether or not those finances come from the club themselves or the Glazers paying for it, it's not the point that we're trying to make. Like £70 million on a guy that scored 9 goals in Serie A last season in about 25 games. We got ripped for Nunes. You don't hear anything about them. So I like United still haven't solved an awful lot of their issues. So the teams that finished ahead of us, I think Newcastle as well have lost a couple of players, and they haven't, and they're going into Champions League football next season. I think it was our saving grace that we didn't get Champions League last season, because while the money would have been good, I don't think we would have signed the players that would have been like we're signing players as if we're playing in the European League. So as in the Europa League, apologies. So I genuinely think that going forward into this season, we can expect a good couple of trophies and for Liverpool to have a bounce back season. I really, really think that, because I think a couple of teams that finished above us are going to have drop-offs, and we could finish second at minimum. I genuinely think that if certain teams falter a little bit and we start off well, and as well with the stand and everything going through a phased opening, we'll have a lot of home games coming into the end of the season. So that'll do us very well too, considering that a couple of our games at the start are going to be away games. So I can call it now. Liverpool are going to win trophies this season, and in 12 months' time, we'll all be looking at it as if to say this was a good season considering. But I do think that we still should be going for titles. That's not out of the realm of possibility this season. But as I said at the start of my long soliloquy, shall we call it, Liverpool is most dangerous when you think you have them. Everybody thinks they have us.
Yeah.
Last season, not getting Champions League was unacceptable. However, there was only one positive that came out of that. It stopped covering what was really happening.
Yeah.
It stopped. What's the word? It stopped covering. I'm not going to say covering shit, but it did start. It did put glitter on crap. Basically, that's what was happening before. Even the quadruple run for me wasn't anywhere near the standards we were in 1918.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. We have not hit those standards since we went in the Premier League. And that's because the standards have dropped from the top right to the bottom. And when standards drop, expectations drop. And when we talk about what's the expectation this season, what's our aim this season, who are you asking? For me, us as fans, obviously we want trophies. Like Steve says, that we want trophies at the end of the season. We want trophies, whether it be FA Cup, whatever. Obviously, League Cup's a bit of a, you know what I'm saying? It's not amazing, but we need to go for those big trophies. We need to be looking for that Europa League, especially this season. Europa League, we should be odds-on favourites. I know no one's ever odds-on favourites from the beginning, but with the team we've got in that league, we should be odds-on favourites.
I've already the hotel booked for Dublin, and it's only up the road for me. So
well, that's not hard for you, is it? God.
Yeah, I need to get that ticket. Honestly, I do, because I want to watch that final, man. I know we're gonna get there. I'm not scared in the Europa League, All I want to say is just to add to what Stephen just said about we don't need that much money, and look at Man United and how they're spending silly money. And what people are saying in the comments, what you need to understand is when you give Klopp, Klopp doesn't need a lot of money, but when you give him a substantial lot of money, he provides results. He's done it in Dortmund, and he showed it in Liverpool when he won the Champions League and the Premier League back to back. So you need to understand this guy. If he had the Man United money, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. We'll be talking, oh, what are we going to win? We're going to win a treble this season. Are we going to win the Premier League back-to-back this season? That's what we'll be talking about, because he shows you that he can provide you results if we just give him the tools that he needs. So that's what all we're saying. We're not trying to say that we need to spend a lot of money. All we're saying is just give the guy what he needs, and he will provide you with results, because he's shown it. And all he's asking for is just give me what I need. And that's it. It's that simple.
When you go into a race, you want running shoes. Jurgen Klopp been given wellies for God knows how long. You can only run so far in wellies. And when he is given those running shoes, your Van Dijk, your Fabinho, your Alisson Becker, he goes on and wins. He turns into Usain Bolt. You give him wellies, he turns that Olympian the other day. I don't know if you've seen the video, but the woman in the 100-meter sprint where she's miles behind everyone else. I think some sort of, I think it was like a weightlifter had to take over.
Yeah. So what happened with that was the sprinter actually got injured, but they were still in the final, so they wanted to put somebody through because it was the first time Iran was ever in a final. The only person available to do it was a weightlifter, and they said, "Sure, why not?" That's
basically Jurgen Klopp with FSG. That's Jurgen Klopp with FSG. He might have entered the race, but you're given absolutely no chance of winning it.
He's racing against Ferraris.
Jurgen Klopp's got his money on that woman. Jurgen Klopp's got money on that woman to win that race, and that's because FSG have cancelled anything else out. They've injured the other one, and this is what we're saying about Jurgen Klopp. If he's given the best, he will provide the best, and this is we deserve it as fans. Klopp deserves it. Before we go though, guys, make sure you do like, subscribe, and share as much as you can this channel. Comment as much as you can. We're live every single night at 7:30. As you can see, it's getting dark here. I think FSG are turning my power off because I'm sick of hearing about it. Transfer room, they said. What transfers, they said. This has been the transfer room anyway, guys. Kev, Stephen, and Harmony, thank you very much, guys, for coming on. And pleasure to be talking to you all.